match NEIL SHICOFF for excitement. And for those that love great singing, there are few singers who can equal his unique combination of power and sensitivity. He's currently at the Metropolitan Opera in New York singing Rodolfo in Verdi's Luisa Miller. Before we talk to him, let's listen to him perform an excerpt from Halevy's La Juive.
Si je le respectais, à toi notre croyance, mon bras t'aurait déjà frappé d'un coup mortel. Et ne va pas te ravir ta vengeance. Je suis chrétien, chrétien.
NEIL SHICOFF, thank you so much for coming back to talk to us.
It's a pleasure.
We just saw a clip from La Juive. Tell us about that opera, what this opera means to you.
It's about, it's interesting. It's in some ways similar to the Luisa Miller, which we will discuss later, because it's about a sense of loss. It's a sense of these two men who are very vindictive and fight each other. Eleazar, who, I mean, the cardinal, Brogny, Rachel, La Juive, which is the title part, is Rachel. She is the real daughter of Brogny, and I raise her. I'm Eleazar, and I raise her as a Jew. And it's about how these two men absolutely cannot compromise with each other. And how at the end of the opera they simply both lose. This daughter, she chooses to die, and it's a sad piece, it's a profound piece, it's a contemporary piece in a sense about the theater of it. When I performed it in Vienna for the first time, it was a very emotional moment because there was a coalition government which was formed in Austria, and it was a very political moment. And we wound up being on the front page of all the newspapers because of the implications of xenophobia and a term of ethnic cleansing which had come up at the time in Europe and Yugoslavia. And it was a very profound moment, really, for certainly musical terms for the city of Vienna. That opera will come to New York in 2 seasons from now.
Was that your doing, that it will be coming to New York?
No, it was the doing of Johann Hollander and Mr. Volpe at the Met. Johann is the head of the Staatsoper in Vienna, and he and Joseph Volpe discussed bringing it. I, of course, wanted it very much to come here. It's a different audience. It's, you know, you have many more survivors of, let's say, the Holocaust, and they're going to watch this piece, which was directed by Günter Kramer, and the scene of the aria that you just heard it, yes? There's no way to avoid that. That's really what he wanted to accomplish, to bring everybody's mind back to the Holocaust. So it's a different audience here. It will be interesting to see how they react. And I'm looking forward to that. I think that La Juive, for me, has been the high point of my career. All the other operas that will follow will never have the kind of impact for me or the impact that I felt in Vienna at that time. So it's quite an experience.
That's 2003.
Yeah.
They
Is
wouldn't
that
be
what
here.
we said, 3-4?
I think so,
It's
right, yeah.
in November, December. Yeah.
But right now, or coming up, Luisa Miller, tell us about your role in that, a little bit about that opera.
Well, yeah, Luisa Miller is, yeah, what can I say about Luisa Miller? It's a
More sad
complicated
stories, right?
Well, it is, the reason to do it is the evolution of the character for the tenor. He starts very happy, and at the end of the opera, I mean, he murders Luisa, he kills himself. You know, he rips apart all the, I suppose he would rip apart all the furniture in the room if he could, eat the dining room table and swallow it whole. He really, this is a tremendous development of a character. In some ways, like Don José in Carmen, who starts out, at least in the opera, mellow and, let's say, somewhat likable for sure, and his relationship with Michaela, and develops into schizophrenic at the end. I mean, his relationship with Carmen is she drives him to despair, and he loves every second of it for sure.
Back to Luisa Miller for a moment. She's got the title, but it's really the tenor's opera.
Well, it's a vehicle for the tenor as well. The aria Quando la sera placido is a beautiful aria. It's a gorgeously written aria with a beautiful recitative before it. And tenors, famous tenors, have always kind of gone into that, been, you know, they want to sing this aria. The quality of the middle voice, it's not a very high aria. The tessitura, which means where it lies, basically, is, it's not very high, and it's just about beauty, and it's about, and in terms of sound. I mean, the words are about, you know, that he doesn't understand why, briefly, why this letter that he has just been given is where Luisa says that she loves someone else. He doesn't understand it, and he reacts very quickly. He doesn't really ask any questions about it. He's paranoid. He's like the rest of the tenors in the world. Paranoid.
The last time you were here, we talked about the fact that you had grew up in New York, spent a lot of time working and performing here in New York, and then went to Europe and spent a lot of time there, and have recently come back and made this more of your place to perform. How are you feeling about that and the reaction from the audience and coming back to America and embracing these productions?
Well, I'm very happy to be here. I think that my time in Europe, to some extent, built an audience for me in Europe, in places like Vienna and Hamburg and Munich and Paris. To come back now means I have to kind of recapture a public that they all knew me. I find it a bit, if I have to be really perfectly frank here, you know, I consider myself really a singing actor, or an actor who sings. In a conservative environment, which is what the Metropolitan Opera, to some extent, in standard repertoire is, doesn't work to my fortes. And the adjustment is not as easy as I would have liked it to be. You know, I'm used to doing kind of off-the-wall standard repertoire as well as not standard repertoire. The big successes for me in these years have been out of standard repertoire. Peter Grimes, La Juive, Billy Budd, as well as standard repertoire. I mean, I go now to Vienna right after this new production. Here I go to do a new production of Romeo and Juliet. These are standard repertoire pieces, the Gounod piece. But this kind of looking in as an actor it's very interesting, and it's very fascinating, and when I have to go and take on a character that's traditional, the movements are less. The depth is the same, but the movements are less, and the focus of the environment around me is different. This transition is not so easy, as I said before.